What if the weirdest twin-engine airplane ever built wasn't strange because it failed, but because it didn't fit aviation's expectations? The Cessna 3.3M Skymaster is often mislabeled and mispriced, not because people are wrong, but because the airplane refuses neat categories. There is no Beechcraft Skymaster and no $1.9 million version. Once you understand what the Skymaster was built to solve, the confusion disappears. A twin that refused to play by twin rules. Most twin-engine airplanes are built around a compromise that pilots learn to respect early. Wing-mounted engines provide redundancy, but they also introduce asymmetry. Lose one engine at the wrong moment, and the airplane doesn't just lose power, it tries to turn itself into a physics lesson. Training exists because the risk is real. Cessna looked at that reality and made a bold, almost stubborn decision. Instead of placing engines on the wings, they put both engines on the center line. One in front pulling, one in back pushing. No yawing fight between left and right, no dramatic asymmetric thrust, just straight ahead power loss if an engine quits. This configuration became known as centerline thrust, and it is the single defining feature of the Skymaster. On paper, it sounds like an elegant solution. In practice, it turned the airplane into something aviation had never quite seen before, a twin that behaved, in some ways, like a single. That decision alone is why the Skymaster still sparks debate decades later. Why the Skymaster looks so strange? There's no gentle way to say this. The Skymaster looks weird. The twin booms, the pod-like fuselage, the rear propeller spinning inches behind the cabin. It doesn't resemble a conventional airplane because it isn't one. But the shape wasn't an aesthetic experiment. It was the direct result of engineering priorities. Keeping both engines on the center line required space, airflow management, and structural compromises that led to the distinctive twin boom design. Everything about the Skymaster's appearance exists because Cessna was chasing behavior, not beauty, and once you accept that, the airplane starts to make sense. Performance that prioritizes stability over speed. If you approach the Skymaster expecting raw performance numbers that rival sleek turboprops or fast piston twins, you will be disappointed. The Skymaster was never designed to win speed contests or impress ramp spectators. What it offers instead is predictability. Typical Skymaster variants cruise in a range that reflects their utility-focused design rather than aerodynamic aggression. The service ceiling sits just under 20,000 feet for non-pressurized versions, with pressurized variants extending the airplane's operational comfort rather than transforming it into a high-altitude machine. Climb performance is respectable, not explosive. Range is practical, not record-breaking. These numbers don't headline well, but they align perfectly with the Skymaster's mission. This is an airplane designed to go places without drama, not to get there first. Inside the cabin. Step inside a Skymaster, and the first surprise is how unremarkable it feels, in the best possible way. There's no attempt to cosplay as a business jet, no glossy illusion of corporate luxury, no fake prestige layered on top of a fundamentally utilitarian airframe. Instead, the cabin tells you exactly what this airplane is about from the moment you sit down. Function first, ego last. Everything inside feels designed to be used, not admired. Switches are where you expect them to be. Seating is practical. Visibility is excellent. The Skymaster doesn't try to distract you with comfort theater. It assumes you're here to fly. Most Skymasters are configured for 4 to 6 occupants, depending on the interior layout and the mission the owner had in mind. Some are arranged for family travel, others for light utility work, and many live somewhere in between. The flexibility is part of the airplane's appeal. Seats can be practical rather than plush, but they're usually upright, supportive, and designed for real travel rather than short hops around the pattern. This isn't an airplane that apologizes for being honest. The most unusual part of the cabin experience isn't something you see, it's something you know. There's a propeller behind you. Even though it doesn't change how the airplane flies, that awareness never completely disappears. You don't hear it the same way you hear the front engine, but psychologically it's always there. For some pilots, that's unsettling at first. For others, it becomes part of the airplane's personality. Over time, many owners describe it as oddly reassuring, constant, steady, doing its job without demanding attention. That subtle psychological presence becomes part of why the Skymaster feels different from almost anything else in the sky. Why pilots trusted the Skymaster. The Skymaster developed a loyal following, not because it was perfect, but because it addressed a specific fear that many pilots quietly carry, losing an engine at the worst possible time. With both engines aligned on the center line, the Skymaster removes the violent yaw that defines many engine-out scenarios in conventional twins. When an engine fails, the airplane airplane loses thrust, but it doesn't immediately demand heroics. That difference matters, especially in high workload phases of flight. This doesn't mean the Skymaster is easy or forgiving in a careless sense. It still requires training, discipline, and respect, but it shifts the nature of the problem. Instead of fighting directional control, the pilot focuses on decision making. That psychological shift is a large part of why the Skymaster earned its reputation as a thinking pilot's twin. The maintenance reality no one can ignore. This is where the Skymaster's story becomes more complicated, and where many myths are born. The rear engine is not a design flaw, but it is demanding. Cooling airflow must be managed correctly. Baffling has to be in good condition. Exhaust and temperature monitoring matter more than casual owners sometimes expect. Access is tighter, inspections take more time, and small issues don't stay small if they're ignored. The Skymaster does not tolerate neglect. It was never meant to. This airplane assumes that its owner understands systems and respects maintenance discipline. When that relationship works, the airplane is solid and dependable. When it doesn't, costs rise quickly and reputations suffer. This is how the myth of unreliability took hold. In reality, the Skymaster isn't unreliable, it's unforgiving of indifference. Owners who stay ahead of maintenance, use experienced mechanics familiar with the type, and treat the airplane as a system rather than a possession tend to have very different experiences than those who cut corners. In many ways, the Skymaster is honest to a fault. It reflects the quality of care it receives. That transparency is uncomfortable for some owners, but deeply appreciated by others. The pressurized Skymaster. Cessna eventually pushed the Skymaster concept further with pressurized variants. The idea was logical. If the airplane already offered redundancy and stability, why not extend its utility into higher altitude comfort? The pressurized Skymaster did exactly that, but it also introduced a new layer of ownership responsibility. Pressurization systems don't forgive neglect. They age, they leak, they demand inspection and care. For owners who treated the airplane as a serious traveling machine, the pressurized Skymaster offered unique capability. For others, it became an example of how ambition increases complexity faster than it increases speed. So where does the $1.9 million myth come from? Here's the truth stated plainly. You do not buy a Skymaster for $1.9 million. Real-world Skymasters trade in the six-figure range depending on condition, engines, avionics, and logs. That has been consistent across the market for years. The million-dollar numbers appear when people confuse purchase price with total investment. A Skymaster can absorb money at an astonishing rate if an owner decides to modernize everything. Full-glass avionics, advanced autopilots, complete rewiring, engine overhauls, propeller replacements, custom interiors, paint restoration, and optional performance conversions can push total spending into territory that shocks outsiders. At that point, the airplane didn't cost $1.9 million. Someone spent $1.9 million. That distinction matters. Why the Skymaster still matters today. Despite being out of production for decades, the Skymaster refuses to disappear from aviation conversations. That's not nostalgia, it's relevance. It occupies a narrow but important niche. It offers redundancy without the traditional twin's most dangerous handling characteristic. It trades raw performance for stability and predictability. It demands respect, knowledge, and commitment from its owner. In an era obsessed with speed, screens, and status, the Skymaster feels almost defiant. It doesn't care how it looks on social media. It cares whether you understand it. The weirdest twin ever built. The Skymaster is weird, but not by accident. It is weird because it questioned assumptions. It is weird because it refused to accept that danger had to be part of the twin-engine bargain. And it is weird because it exposed how much aviation culture relies on tradition rather than rethinking fundamentals. It's not perfect, it's not cheap to maintain, it's not fast, but it is intentional. And in aviation, intention matters more than image. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of aviation's most misunderstood airplanes, like and subscribe. The Skymaster proves that the strangest designs often solve the biggest problems, and there are plenty more aircraft like this hiding in plain sight. If you want smarter aviation videos that go beyond the headlines, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.